started here. The Planning and Zoning Commission is generally an advisory body to the City Council. The City Council will hold a public hearing and make final decisions on all matters before the Commission other than site plans. The Commission's decision to approve or deny a site plan is a final decision by the City unless the applicant appeals to the City Council. You'll need to contact the City Clerk or Community Development Department staff for details on those council hearings. This evening, the applicant will be given 10 minutes to present their request after staff's presentation. Proponents and then opponents will be allowed to speak, with each speaker allowed a maximum of 5 minutes. Actually, we give a little more than that, don't we, Jason?
Yes, we do.
The applicant will then be allowed 5 minutes for a rebuttal. The hearing will then be closed, and after motion, the Commission will discuss and vote on the issue. All comments are to be germane to the issue under consideration, and speakers are to maintain a courteous manner. Items listed on the consent portion of the agenda will not be individually discussed and will be considered for approval in accordance with the recommendation in the staff report unless an individual present or a member of the Commission requests the item be removed from the consent agenda and separately considered under the public hearing agenda. We have on the consent agenda 3 items with a potential for moving 3 more. So we want you to pay close attention, because if that's one of the items that you're in opposition to, we'd like to know that. The City of Des Moines is pleased to provide accommodations to individuals or groups with disabilities and encourages participation in city government. To better serve you when possible, please notify us at least 3 business days in advance at area code 515-283-4209 should a special accommodations be required. Assistive listening devices are also available for meetings in the council chambers. The Planning and Zoning Commission meetings are also broadcast on Mediacom Cable Channel 7 for customers with that service. The broadcast is also streamed live in real time on the City of Des Moines website at www.desmoinesgov.org. You'll need to click the Watch Live link on your computer. Of course, you won't be here, which we would like for that to happen. Do we have a quorum, Kathy? Quorum being present, is there a motion to approve the minutes? Okay, by committee. All those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. Opposed, same sign. Acclamation, Kathy. I understand that there is a move to move 4, 5, and 6 onto consent agenda. Do we have a motion for that?
So moved.
Okay. Sure, surely.
Staff had recommended 5 denial, so I'm
Right. And the
Right.
consent means that we're going to consent to what the staff's recommendation is. All right, and we got a lot of people here in the audience who want everybody to know what's going on. Item number 4 is the City Council initiated request to rezone property in the vicinity of 1540 Scott Avenue. Is there anyone here to speak in opposition to that item tonight? In opposition. Everybody know which one we're talking about here? We've got it overhead. All right. So nobody's in opposition. Seeing none. Item number 5 is a request from Alawa Habib to rezone property located at 2410 Hickman Road in order to eliminate a zoning condition that prohibits the use of the property as a vehicle display lot. The subject property is owned by Daybreak Family Worship Center, Inc. Is there anyone here to speak in opposition to that item tonight? In opposition? Okay, I'm not seeing any.
Do you,
Staff recommendation on that one is, what's that, Jason? Denial.
So you might want to see if the applicant
Okay.
wants.
The staff recommendation on that one is to deny it. Is there anyone here that, okay, seeing none. The last one is a request from Kana Family Investment, represented by Raish Kana, for review and approval of a site plan for Oasis Convenience Store under design guidelines for gas stations, convenience stores located at 2917 Payne to allow installation of a 24-foot by 45-foot pump canopy island serving 4 gasoline fueling stations in addition to the existing 2,604 square foot limited floor sales store. The subject property is owned by Kabash Singh. Betty, is that the same? That's one name there. And Pamaja Betty, obviously I messed that one up. Is there anyone here to speak in opposition to that item tonight? And the recommendation? Okay.
The recommendation is denial.
Recommendation is denial. You're here to speak in in opposition to the request or the recommendation by staff?
You're in favor?
I want to deny it and ask.
Okay, and that's the recommendation by staff. That's fine. I'm glad you said something, because hopefully everybody understands from our comments here. Is there anyone else? Okay,
The applicant had requested continuance, so I don't know if they're actually here to speak on their behalf or not, or their architect. Okay.
okay.
If they want to continue it, then we have to separate that.
Yeah, we can separate that out. All right, so we'll move 4 and 5 onto consent.
We did have also one person that wanted to speak on 4.
Okay, are you in opposition to the recommendation by staff?
You're talking to me?
Yes, are you the one that's on number 4?
I'm not really familiar. The change of zoning, I feel I'm losing my ability to use my property in an industrial manner. So I'm against changing zoning.
Do you understand that this is a rezoning of land that the city owns, not your land, I don't believe?
Well, I have adjacent property. I have about 35 lots, pretty close to the 1540 Scott Street.
Okay.
But you understand, yeah, go ahead, I'm sorry.
I just wanted to clarify that the rezoning is just for this property. This isn't like an area-wide rezoning. It's specific to the property at 1540.
Okay, I wasn't, well, I felt that probably whatever I had to say would be ignored anyway, but,
Well, sir, if you want an opportunity to speak, we're certainly going to give you that.
pardon me?
If you want an opportunity to speak, we'll certainly give you that.
Okay. Well, if it's just for that property, 1540, I have no opposition to that particular
Okay,
parcel.
all right,
Thank you.
thank you. Let me move over here to the other ones that are already on consent so everybody will know. Well, first of all, let's go ahead and move those on consent.
I move.
Okay, we've already had the motion. Oh, yeah, 4 and 5. All those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand.
Dan, we just had 4 people walk.
Opposed, same sign. Gentlemen, you just came in. We have moved items number 4 and 5 onto the consent agenda. Were you here and speaking in opposition to those tonight? Do you know what they are? Let me run over them again with you. It's a city council initiated request to rezone property on Scott Avenue, 1540 Scott Avenue. Are you here for that item? They're not? Okay. And the next one is a request to rezone property located at 2410 Hickman Road. Are you in opposition to staff's recommendation?
The staff recommendation, yes, we are.
Okay, so you do want to, okay. Then we pull that off. Okay, 5, so we got 4, right? All right. All those in favor of moving 4 onto consent agenda, please signify by raising your right hand. Opposed, same sign. Okay, let me go over to 1, 2, and 3. 1 is a request from Neighborhood Development Corporation represented by Heidi Wessel for review and approval of an amendment to the East Hartford Development Site Plan under design guidelines for multiple family residential and NPC districts on property located at 1938 East 6th. Is there anyone here to speak in opposition to the recommendation on that one? Okay, seeing none. The second one is a request from 1417 LLC, represented by David Hanson, for review and approval of a site plan under design guidelines, for vehicle display lots on property located at 4117 Merle Hay Road. Is there anyone to speak in opposition to that item tonight? Okay, seeing none. The last one is a request from Casey and Jordana Hankey for review and approval of a site plan silo vintage and handmade co-op under design guidelines in C3B districts on property located at 509 East 5th Street to allow modification of the building facade and streetscape for retail reuse. Is there anyone here to speak in opposition to that item tonight? Seeing none. We have a motion to move consent. Greg? You got it, Kathy? I'm ahead of you. All those in Yeah, that'll be 1, 2, 3, and 4. All those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. Opposed, same sign. No opposition. Okay, we're going to move on to item number 5.
Chair, I would just, on 6, I know they want to request a continuance. Would it be appropriate to jump to that one? And
Okay, we could do that.
that is one, as you noted, that staff has recommended denial. There were several shortcomings identified in the staff report. One was the lack of a photometric plan. They did submit that. We are expecting, based on their communication with us, to have some revisions to the site plan with regard to trying to address some of the other design guidelines for convenience stores. They are requesting that and be continued to the next meeting, which would be June 7th, I believe.
Is that right? June 7th, good?
Yeah, Bird
Okay.
nodded yes, so it's got to be.
All right.
Okay, I'm sorry, I have a question. We are the applicants for the silo vintage and co-op. We have questions on some of the recommendations. So we're not opposing the passing of it, or when do we?
That one's already been voted on, but I know Andy talked to you today, exactly, and I think we can sort it through. It sounds like you're not going to oppose necessarily.
You're certainly welcome to talk to staff. They'll be more than willing to talk to you about it.
I'll give you my card, we'll figure it out.
Okay.
Anyway, so I'm looking for a motion to continue 6th.
All right. Is there a motion? Okay. Greg? Any discussion? We're going to continue item number 6. Give them a chance to talk to staff, and it's reset for June 7th. Is that right, Jason?
Yes.
June 7th? Okay. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. Opposed, same sign. It's continued.
Excuse me, I've got a question.
Yes, sir.
When you refer to staff recommendations, what is staff?
Well, there wasn't a staff, the staff recommendation on this one was for denial.
I understand. What is, by definition, staff?
The staff is the Community Development Department staff. They're responsible for oversight of all plans that are submitted to them. They will work through them. They'll work with you if you're the one that submitted it, and then they'll give you discussion and suggestions as to how to make it work within our guidelines. And then from there, it comes before us, and so their recommendation is usually based upon discussions with the people that are involved in the rezoning request. Did you have any other questions?
Thank you.
I have one. In number 6, being that it's postponed until the next meeting, does that mean we have to come back to the next meeting, or can I give you what I have that is?
You know what? I'm sorry. I didn't ask for that. If you would like to come forward, you're certainly welcome to come forward and address us now, but realize that it will be on for the next meeting's agenda. Ideally, probably what you want to do is come back. We don't have final approval, and I think I read that to you when we first
This is
discussed
the
it.
site plan. The zoning we are discussing, so we do have.
Oh, this is a site plan in this
Yeah,
case?
I think there's
Okay,
two,
I'm
they're
sorry.
close together in proximity, and they're, I think, easy to get twisted.
All right. So if you would like to discuss it tonight, you can do that, but we're going to give them an opportunity to come back on the 7th, and you may want to do that as well. So it's up to you. If you want to talk tonight, I'm certainly not going to deny you that opportunity.
Okay, well, I'm the neighbor. I am beside them. I'm at 28.
And why don't you step up here, give us your name and address so we can kind of get an idea here.
My name is Kathy Bradshaw, and I own the apartment buildings at 2805 30th Street and 2910 Arnold Road. This so-called convenience store has been a huge problem in the neighborhood. And I went around and I have about 40 signatures on a petition requesting that this not be approved.
Okay? Do you have copies of that already?
I have copies of it, but I can certainly leave it.
No, you can go ahead and it'll be received and filed if you just give it to that young lady right there.
Okay. There are 5 entrances and exits right by this location that they're asking for these gas pumps to be placed, within about 150 feet. And the congestion of going in and out of our apartment building on both sides of the street, plus the building across the street, and you've got children that are walking the street back and forth to school. I mean, this is an issue already, not to mention the lighting factor. I mean, there's no buffers between these buildings. And I just feel that it's something that our neighborhood does not want. And there's just all kinds of problems associated. I mean, we've had a murder there, we've had robberies, we've had just all kinds of things going on there. And it is not a good place.
Okay. Ma'am, I'm going to suggest you contact, or you could talk to those people who signed your petition and have them come, and you should probably come on the 7th as well.
Okay. I would be happy to do that.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who'd like to voice an opinion with respect to item number 6, although it's already been continued? Ma'am, if you would, go ahead and step up to the mic and give us your name and item number 6.
Site plan on Payne,
On what?
Payne Road. This is not Hickman, this is on Payne.
Okay, you all right with that? Okay. Anyone else like to step forward on item number 6? Okay. Thank you. We're going to move on to item number 5. This is for rezoning property located at 2410 Hickman Road. Jason, are you presenting on this one?
Yes,
Thank you, sir.
We'll go ahead and pass around the response cards and a couple of emails that we got. We'll show that response map in the presentation. This aerial showing the subject property on the south side of Hickman Road at the intersection of 26th Street. It's the former putt-putt location, so I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with it in that context. The whole site is shown on here to identify it, but the zoning conditions, they're really the subject of discussion, are on the western portion of the site that really encompasses that existing parking lot.
That was enough.
You gotta get a feel for the area with the apartments, single family, the kind of commercial node over at the intersection with MLK to the east. Just to give you a sense of the zoning in the area, it shows up a little better than on the aerial. The red is C2. We have some R3 shown by R160, a little bit R3, C1 to the north. So here's the subject property. Again, those conditions apply over here. They were put in place, I believe, in the late 80s as a rezoning from R3 to limited C2 to essentially allow for a parking lot to be developed here to support this use, or the golf course use, putt-putt use. Those zoning conditions limit the use of this part of the property to R3 uses plus parking. So there are no, although the agenda discuss the condition pertaining to vehicle display lot, those conditions actually eliminate all commercial use other than parking associated with commercial activity on the eastern part of the site. This is the future land use plan for the area zoomed in to the kind of this general area. You can see the subject property is located in an area that is identified on the future land use map as medium density residential. So this rezoning would require an amendment to the land use plan. I can kind of sense that when this was put together, which was developed, the 2020 community character plan was developed after this zoning, but when going through that planning process and looking back in this area, it was felt that the commercial activity should stay closer to this node, and really that this is a transition point or transition area best suited for multifamily use, which is a logical step in intensity to single family development. This map identifies, this is the notice boundary. that we send notices to. And then we get the response cards, and we got 4 response cards back from within the notice area in opposition.
Does that do anything?
It does not hit, doesn't hit the 20% threshold where it requires a supermajority at city council. We're not, although more cards could be submitted between now and the council hearing, which could change that. Photograph looking east down Hickman, so parking lot, existing building. Looking south down the side street. The included in the rezoning application was a site sketch. If the zoning condition is lifted or this rezoning is approved by the city council, before the site could be developed for display use, they would have to come back to the Planning and Zoning Commission with a full site plan for review under our vehicle display lot design guidelines. So let me see. So this is the boundary of the property, heavily wooded areas in this vicinity. The kind of what's left of the putt-putt course. The activity, their focus is really the western edge. This identifies what would be display. They have adequate parking to meet the zoning requirements for this type of use based on the square footage of the existing building, and then an addition that they'd like to place to the east of that. Some additional paving would be installed here to provide access to those buildings for their use as the vehicle sells. If this does come back with a site plan, we would evaluate buffer requirements, landscaping, throughout the site, perimeter display area landscaping. But at this stage, we haven't done that. I realized I got up here without my actual notes and got down the path, and so let me double check here. We are recommending denial, as I had mentioned in my presentation earlier. It doesn't conform with the current future land use designations. This area was really thought of as, when we went through that planning process, as a transition point. I think that even if you look back further prior to when that zoning condition was put into place prior to the most recent effort for the future land use map and plan, that zoning condition limited it to parking and R3 uses really was a way to allow this area that was already zoned C2 to be developed for what I would consider a very low impact use. And I think that the intent and the thought behind those conditions apply today, and that's the basis of our recommendation. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Seeing none, is the applicant present? Could they please come forward, give us your name and address?
Vince Pagentini, Associated Engineering Company of Iowa, 2917 Martin Luther King Jr. Parkway, Des Moines. We're trying to make use of this site. Probably everybody's driven by it. It's sat vacant pretty much for quite a while. So we're requesting the rezoning to be able to utilize it in some sort of fashion. We're going to have parking, the cars in the hatched area, and the addition of the building to basically clean the cars, and then maintain the easterly part as trees and everything that it currently is. So I'm not sure what else to tell you on this, but.
Any questions? Thank you.
I believe the owners got some comments also.
Right. Please come forward, give us your name and address.
Hello, my name is Alawi Habib, and me and my brother, Mukhtar there. We purchased this property back about a month ago, and about a week before I purchased this place, actually me myself drove to the city hall And because this is new everything for me, so I don't know, I'm not an expert on this stuff. So I drove there and I gave them the address. I told them, hey, I would like to purchase this place. And can you guys check, give me ideas, because I'm new to this, I'm new to this country. I've only been here 16 years. And I've been to Des Moines for the past 16 years. And this is like, I pass through here like maybe 20 times a day, this is kind of my street, And so I remember since I came here, I've been seeing this place, not even for use for anything. But it came for sale, and then I was interested in it. And I went to downtown, I showed them the property, I gave them the address. They said, oh, well, there's no restriction on this place. This is zoned for commercial. And I was like, what do you think, turning this place into like car lot? They said, they looked at everything. They said, this is a perfect place, there's no restriction, anything on this place. So they give me like the guidelines, like what you need to do to open this in a car lot. So they give me a list of like the landscaping, how much you're supposed to be from the curb and everything. So like then I took everything and I went to Vic, I think it's his brother. So and I hired him, and then I purchased the place. And then we made an appointment on Tuesday for the what's it called, the interview, Yeah, that's when they kind of like, they said, oh, they did some little bit digging. They didn't know this side of, one side of the parking has restriction on it. And they told me that, but we have to put application for rezoning and all that stuff. So I basically doing whatever they told me to do, And so I went to that, and they told me that they have to set an appointment for the rezoning, which is a city hall. And about Tuesday, just this past Tuesday, the 15th, I wrote a letter to every neighborhood in that area. And I sent I wish I would have came with a letter, but I didn't. But I sent it to every address in that neighborhood. And basically, I was there on Tuesday at 5 o'clock. There's two neighbors came. And one wasn't really a neighbor. His name was Jeremy. He gave me his card. His name is Jeremy, and he's the manager, the property management for those apartments behind the property. And he said that he's really happy about to see finally this place to being used, for something, because they said they've been having problems with this lot for the past 6 years, because they have kids from the apartment, they walk by it, and the fences are all broken. I don't know how many of you passed through the area. So when I purchased the place, I went in there, there's snakes everywhere, there's like broken bottles everywhere, there's like sharp like objects everywhere. And so the manager was really happy about how I approached him. I told him, I'm gonna clean this place up, really keep it neat, and it's not gonna be like the big car lot place, it's just like a small place, And he was gonna be here today, but they had an appointment. They already scheduled event at the apartments today, so he said he couldn't be here. So, I would like to get rezoned, so basically put this place to use, in a good use, And I don't know what to do next,
Any questions? Thank you. Please step forward, give us your name and address.
My name is Mukhtar Habib, and I live at 3121 Kingman Boulevard. And pretty much he said everything I wanted to say, really. So I don't really like it. Like he said, we're just trying to make the place look nice and stuff. For this, it's going to make the city look good too and stuff like that. Because, like he said, when we went there, we saw like a lot of broken glass, like snakes and everything. Like the guy even said, if you guys take the place, fix it up, make it look nice, it will actually make the whole place look nice too. It would even give business to the buildings and stuff like that too. So we just thought like, yeah, we have to do what we have to do to make the place look nice.
Okay.
And we have to come here and get that approval.
Any questions? Joanne?
Have you already purchased this property?
Yes.
Or is it pending?
No, we already purchased it.
You have purchased it?
Like you said, before we purchased it, we did some research and everything like that. They said everything was good, but then once we purchased it, and then something came up and they said, hey, this needs to be rezoned and stuff like that. So that's when the problem just started and stuff.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone here to speak in favor of the application? Please come forward. Give us your name and address. In favor. In favor. Is there anyone here to speak in opposition to the application? Please come forward. Give us your name and address.
Hi. You have the cards. I'm Nancy Saunders. I'm north of Hickman on 2305 26th Street. My address is 26, but I face Hickman. And I oppose it for these reasons: neighborhood safety, neighborhood security, environmental noise and traffic. The type of business will not be a socio-economic suitable for the neighborhood. And I wrote, does not have a dealer's license at the present time. You do have to have a dealer's license in the state of Iowa to have cars on a lot. I am aware of this because I used to be a dealer, owner of a lot north of 2nd Avenue and northeast 14th Street. In order to get a dealer's license, there is some requirements, and this property does not meet those requirements. So as of, they purchased the property, did not know that it needed rezoned, so they're already got one behind the 8 ball. And getting a license also has stipulations. I mean, if you need to know those, I can let you know. But that's another things that need to be reached out in order to have this property available. But any questions?
Any questions? Jackie?
The prospective owner mentioned that there was a neighborhood meeting. Were you in attendance at that meeting? It sounds like it was not attended.
This neighborhood meeting, it was to be on the lot at 5 o'clock. No phone numbers, no addresses, no information to get contact back with them. It was just kind of a short note letter stating that they purchased the property, and if you have any questions, to meet at 5 o'clock on Tuesday night. Well, I work evenings, so, I didn't feel it was justified just to, give them my points so they could come in and rebuttal those points that I have made.
Okay.
Any other questions? Thank you. Anyone else here to speak in opposition to the application? Seeing none, do you guys need some rebuttal time?
Well, I would just like to add a little bit about safety. Actually, when it comes to safety, I think this place is not safety right now as it is, because all that area is pitch black right now. Even Jeremy, the management for the property, told me that actually when you get approved, I would like to see some lights put it there, so this place can be shining at night, so at least you can see some activities, what's going on. Right now, everything in that area, everything's just pitch black, and they have kids going through back and forth that area, you don't even know what they're doing, so. And then, right across from that place, there's like a bike world. I don't know if you guys seen it. On the side of that, there's a car wash. There's a lot of commercial places in that area, so
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you. I'm going to close the public hearing. Do we have a motion?
Move staff.
Move staff. Shirley? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those, well, I think we got to break this down, don't we?
You could do part A and then B and C together.
Yeah. The first question is whether or not it's the proposed amendments in conformance with the Des Moines 2020 community, wow, what a problem. Community character plan, and staff's recommendation is that it is not. Everybody see that? All those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. Opposed, same sign. Acclamation, Kathy. Then we'll take B and C, recommends denial of requested amendment and denial of the rezoning. Any discussion?
That just seems too bad if somebody's invested in a property that's derelict and the only use that they've proposed is one that's really not so suitable.
Right. It'd be nice if they talked to an attorney, wouldn't it, Jack? Sorry. Is that paid advertising? I mean, I'm a government attorney, so.
Because we got a big letter about this.
Yeah.
Yeah, the neighborhood is not for that.
All those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. Opposed, same sign. Thank you. Staff's recommendation carries, which is denial.
This being a rezoning, it will be forwarded to the city council. And then they will set a date of hearing, because on rezonings, we're just making a recommendation, so they still have an opportunity to present their case to the
It'd be
city council.
6/7 though, right?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, moving on to item number 7.
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, item number 7 is the review and approval of a site plan for a vehicle display lot. The subject property is located at the southwest corner of Southeast 14th and King Avenue. The site was rezoned back in February to lift the vehicle display lot overlay district for this property. So tonight we're not talking about the rezoning, we're just talking about review and approval of a site plan for a vehicle display lot. Here's the site plan that has been proposed. It's really in conformance with all of our requirements, except we have 2 points of, I guess, discussion tonight. One of those is they've proposed an access easement to the property adjacent to the south. Right now, the access easement shows that occurring at the rear of the lot. Staff believes that there's an opportunity to move that easement so that it just comes at the front of the property, even with the north-south drive aisle here. And then the other point of discussion tonight is they've asked for a waiver of the required 10-foot wide buffer yard along the south property line. Right now, the paving goes up to the property line, so by putting a 10-foot wide landscaped strip on their property, they would likely lose quite a few parking spaces. They might be able to do some parallel parking here, but overall they would lose a lot. So our recommendation is that they provide that buffer yard, but they either do so on their own property or get an easement to do so on the property to the south. It sounds like they're not going to be able to get that easement on the property to the south. I'll let the applicant explain that situation, but I do know they're having some issues there. The property to the south right now is just a single-family house. It is owned commercial, but it's used as a single-family dwelling. And I guess this shows the landscaping plan. So they are adding quite a bit of landscaping along Southeast 14th Street and one tree along the south property line. And then this is the elevation of what's there. If you're familiar with the site, this was originally a gun and pawn shop, so they're now wanting to use it for a vehicle display lot. Here's a picture of the building as it is today. This is looking at it from the southeast corner of the site. As you can see here, the house to the south already uses the property for an egress. This photo here also shows you can see the neighbors driving over it illegally. And this is looking south from King Avenue. This is the subject property. You can see the house there that we've asked for the buffer yard from. And again, it is a house now, but it's zoned C2, so it could develop commercially in the future. shows the area. The property line is right along the pavement. We've asked for the buffer yard to be provided either with an easement on this property or on the property. And the commission does have the authority to waive that landscaping requirement tonight. And we did not get any cards back either way, either in support or opposition. So, staff recommends approval of the site plan. We felt it meets the design guidelines for vehicle display lots. As I mentioned earlier, this isn't a rezoning. They already have the zoning necessary for a car lot. They just need the site plan approval. But we've recommended the approval of the site plan be subject to 3 conditions. 1, they comply with all administrative review comments of the Permit Development Center. 2, that they provide the required buffer yard landscaping and screening along the south property line. This may be accomplished on the adjoining property with an easement. And then 3, shift the necessary proposed ingress-egress easement on the site plan to align with the north-south drive aisle on the site. So, are there any questions?
Greg.
Bert, how long ago was this site plan, was it developed in the first place? I'm just curious about how they have paving right up next to the south property line.
Yeah.
In my experience, we haven't allowed that in a long time.
Well, it was built in 1999. Typically, we would require a setback there, except it's zoned commercially to the south, so for a parking lot, there's no zoning requirement for a paving setback. And the landscape standards were put into effect in like 2002, 2003. So.
Any other questions?
I was just wanted to clarify, did we not hear from the person that lives to the south?
No, we did not hear.
Are they owner occupied or is that a rental?
Well, it's rental, but they do not have a rental certificate, so I know the zoning inspector is going to be looking into that.
Surprise,
Okay.
surprise. Okay.
He was the one that actually recommended the pawn shop.
Thank you, Bert. Is the applicant present? Please have him come forward, give us your name and address. How unbelievable.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the commission, city staff, and legal counsel. I'm actually Dwayne Dale, and I'm the attorney for Antofer Holdings and Kevin Antofer. Kevin Antofer is here with me this evening, and he'll be speaking as well. But if I could just address a couple of things first. We, of course, want you to agree with the city staff in this case and approve the site plan, but we would like to discuss the several items that the city staff is recommending in this case. The first issue, of course, is that buffering to the property to the south. The problem is that they already explained the concrete already goes up to the property line. The property to the south is currently zoned C2, and it is for sale. You already heard the issue that there's not a current permit or anything to have an owner or somebody occupying that property. So our position is that should be considered a vacant property, and under 82.213 of the city code, you're supposed to look at the current status of that property, the use and future use of that property, and if it's vacant, then it's to be considered under the current zoning. Well, the current zoning is C2, so it's our position you've got a C2 property next to a C2 property, so there would be no buffering requirement. The property is also for sale, and certainly a property right on Southeast 14th Street like that, I mean, its best use moving forward is also going to be commercial. So again, you're going to have a commercial property next to a commercial property, which there wouldn't be a buffering requirement. So that's our position on that question. I'm going to have Mr. Antofer speak about item number 3, which discusses the moving of that egress easement to the front of the property.
Good evening. My name is Kevin Antofer at 3107 Southwest 26th Street, Ankeny, Iowa. In reference to item number 3, on the picture that you see here, when we were through the the planning and zoning and also city council previously, we agreed to a no more than 30. Unlike other car lots or display, they pack the whole area. We don't require that, nor do we want that in this area. We want a minimal amount. The parking stalls for that 30 is in this area. And to bring the easement directly through here would lose 4 to 5 stalls. Since we already have a pre-existing condition that we have agreed along with city to be put on this, if we were to move this easement, we would ask the same thing be that we agreed before of 30, that I do not have to come back to city council, planning and zoning, and this whole process again to move these stalls somewhere else. So I guess in item 3, it's not opposing you move this, but if we do, we are requesting that we put that in writing now so that this doesn't become a long process with planning and zoning later down the road. We have agreed to 30, no more, no less. So if we use 3 or 4 of my stalls of the 30, I need to be able to move those somewhere else.
Any questions?
Could we see an aerial photograph of this property again?
Sorry.
Do you have any questions, Mike? Joanne?
You've got an egress on the south side of the building? Is that what I'm seeing here?
In the site, sorry.
On your site plan, you have an egress on the south side of the building, to the back of the building.
The
Right.
egress is right here.
Okay, where does it go? If that's the property line, you have an egress onto somebody else's property? Is that what I'm seeing?
In order to have access to the property to the south, commercial property.
Could you go back to the aerial photo and point that out?
Okay.
This doesn't make sense to me, so I'd like to have that kind of explained.
Maybe city staff should explain that.
We've requested a future access easement, so when this property here to the south does develop, that they could get access across this property to this intersection here, since there's a median in Southeast 14th Street now. So we've asked them to put an easement across their property. They're proposing to have the entrance be back here in order to maintain vehicle display and parking in the visible areas along Southeast 14th Street.
So what you're asking maybe is for them to move the parking spaces to the back.
Right. And they wouldn't have to construct the driveway across here until this property to the south develops. So right now it'd just be an easement on paper so that when this property to the south does develop, the easement's in place for them to get up to King Avenue.
Oh, okay, I see. All right, then it just is a matter of putting your stripes in one place instead of another,
Yeah, or
basically.
getting the easement approved on paper, so someday
Yeah,
it'll be
okay.
there.
Could I just add to that?
Yeah.
The only thing I want to make sure the commission is clear, and what Mr. Antover was explaining, and he doesn't have a problem if that developed in the future, moving that easement, but he's restricted to 30 spaces, so he just would like us to agree now as well that he would be able to move those spaces somewhere else on the lot to keep the 30.
I would assume that that would be what he would be doing. When it goes through, then those spaces go to the back where,
Well, the way that this is passed thus far with the VDL that I have for this was agreed upon with the city and with myself as the owner, that we don't have any more than 30, none less, and that if anything changes, I'd have to come back through this whole process again, which is very costly. Site plan, change, show where the parking stalls, what's for display, what's for this. It's very costly and very, very time consuming. So what I'm asking is, if we move this for future use, which that is C2, and it's going to be C2, nobody's gonna buy it and go put a house there. Okay, the house was there. I can't change that, it's C2. So me to put a fence, what Dewey was talking about, it's a moot point. You're just making me spend money to put up something that it's not going to develop in that. It's going to be C2. No problem moving the easement. I just would like the agreement that I still keep my 30. So if I lose 3 stalls or 4 stalls, or you take 10, I don't really care what it is. I got room on my property, but I don't want to come back through. I like seeing you guys, but I don't want to keep coming through this whole process.
Well, personally, I don't see a problem with that.
So that's why I wanted that in writing, just like the 30 I have in writing, that we have signed off and agreed with the city that I don't have any more than 30. I want that to be in writing, that we develop that. They put in the easement, and Kentucky Fried Chicken's next to me. I take my stalls, I move them somewhere else. We sign off, we're done, everybody moves on.
Tim, did you have?
That could be achieved by just adding a note to the site plan that when the driveway is constructed here, the 4 displays,
3, 4, whatever it is.
areas or spots could be shifted to this area here.
You'll actually pick up 1 or 2 that face the main street, because it'll be off an extended aisleway. This isn't it.
Yeah, David?
Tim, did you have a comment?
Yes, I do, Mr. Chair. I'm familiar a little bit with this property and know a little bit of the history. Gentleman that owned this pond business also owns the 2 houses south of it. That's why the egress goes through there, and that's why the cement is up so close to the boundary. Now, I agree to the rezoning this just for the fact that he agreed to the 30 stalls rather than a lot of them. I understand what he's getting at. He wants it in writing that he gets 2 more stalls, but where are those going to be? I mean, where? You've gotten to the site plan that far yet? And another concern is really vacant because there's no permit, a vacant building because there's no permit. Is that what's considered vacant?
What? I mean, you might have to speak to your legal counsel on that, but.
I'm asking you.
Well, our position, yes, because legally there can't be anybody in there. So from a legal standpoint, I would say it should be considered vacant.
R1. Any other questions, comments?
I have a thought. Also, on requiring this buffer yard, I personally don't see the need for it. If anything, a fence, but I do not see the need to have this buffer yard between C2 properties, especially if the house is inappropriate. The use of it will probably be commercial if it's sold.
Any other questions, comments? Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone here to speak in favor of the application? Please come forward. Seeing none, is there anyone here to speak in opposition to the application? Please come forward. Likewise, seeing none, I'm going to go ahead and, unless you guys want some rebuttal time, I'm going to close the public hearing. Do I have a motion? Tim? Joanne?
I'll move it, but I'd like to see something changed in the requirements.
Then you need to do that if that's what your motion's going to be.
Okay, my motion would be to accept, however, requiring the buffer yard to be reduced to installing a fence, and that as the folks have requested, have the spaces that would be moved if the property is sold and developed, have that in writing so that they don't have to go through this process again. You know, that it will be allowed to switch.
Since there has been some discussion from this commission, could we allow the planning department to determine where those stalls would be moved so they don't have to come back here?
I'd like some administrative thing, yeah, that would be fine with me.
You got all that down, right, Kathy?
Yeah, and actually, I anticipate that we would show on the site plan, dashed lines where they would go to be handled administratively. And we can't do anything like, in writing like he's saying, but our form of writing is an official site plan that's got notes on it and is signed by the director. So it's not a big deal.
Okay, anything else in your motion?
No, just have those two things changed.
Discussion, Greg?
I'll vote against this because I think the buffer yard, we need to do something about it. And so the only way that I would agree to it is if he ups the required landscaping on the rest of the site by double or some amount greater than he would have had to put in by not putting the buffer in.
Sir, you're done. You're done.
Yeah, but leave it up. That's all.
How could we do that? Would we have him, like, break up the concrete and,
No, he could put twice as many shrubs out front or around the building, or I don't care where they go.
just got quite a bit already.
Yeah.
Well, if it comes out to be double, then I'm fine with it.
Yeah. I believe it's already more than double what's normally allowed. I know they put
Well, I'd
quite
like
a
to see that in the motion, just to make sure. So I'll vote no unless that's in the motion.
Okay, I can add that to the motion because it's already landscaped over double.
So Joe, what you're recommending is a fence along the south?
It reduced to something no more than a fence. If they really need anything between commercial property.
So would you agree then that your motion would also read that the required landscaping along the public frontages would be not less than twice the required landscaping? And according to staff, they might already be there.
Already be, yeah,
But
yes,
that would satisfy Greg.
yeah.
And you're saying instead of a fence or landscaping?
The landscaping as it is already double.
Yeah. I was just going to point out.
So if
She's
you
talking
want
about the
something-
fence as opposed to having the buffer.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
the paving already goes up to the property line, and the requirement, or they would be required to put the fence on their property, so.
Yeah,
They
that's,
might have to remove pavement in order to do the fence, so
well,
like a foot of pavement.
they don't have to remove that much pavement to put blocks down to support a fence.
Okay.
They can take chunks where the
Right.
footings are supposed to be. So I don't see a problem.
Okay.
It wouldn't be as expensive, it wouldn't be as necessary.
You're thinking like a 3-foot tall screen or a 6-foot tall?
I'm not going to specify because there is a rise there, so I'm not sure a 3-foot fence would be anything except this is my property line.
Just whatever would be required by the buffering requirements.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that'd be good enough.
Jack?
Why does one need a fence?
Who knows?
I agree with that. I don't see the need for a fence there.
I don't see the need for anything. I'd like to have
Okay,
it
so
reduced
then
to no
you're
more than a
withdrawing-
fence.
And you're withdrawing your fence?
No, it's just no more than a fence, is what I had said. Have a buffering reduced to no more
No,
than a fence.
so what you're asking for is,
Nothing or a fence.
okay, so you're suggesting nothing is what you're suggesting?
Yeah, I do. I don't have a problem with
Okay,
that.
all right.
Why don't we just
Is that helpful? Everybody understand that? So it'd be nothing,
Nothing or a fence.
no buffer,
It's nothing but doubling the amount of
landscaping around it.
Landscaping, yeah.
Okay,
So we've eliminated paragraph 2 of the staff recommendation, is that what's just happened?
that's certainly what it sounded like
Yeah.
to me.
But then adding another condition that the landscaping shall be doubled.
Doubled.
Right.
Along frontages. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It is already.
And I'm sure the new owners there probably put up a buffer anyways.
Mhm. Yeah.
So has the motion become staff with condition 1 and condition 3?
Yes, and condition
And-
4.
And an elimination of condition 2 with addition of number 4 with respect to landscape density?
That's correct.
With in regard to the
Very
buffer.
good, Jack.
Trying here.
Yeah.
All right, that's okay.
And that the,
move the stalls.
right, and that moving the stalls and all that would be in writing.
Yeah, I was going to suggest like adding a note to number 3 Any displaced display area shall be permitted in a location on the site plan as administratively approved by the planning administrator.
Yeah. That works. Yeah.
Okay. He's good at this.
Yeah.
You ought to bring him into your office, Jack.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I can tell it's almost 7 o'clock, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Too many lawyers.
Is there, I know. It's just-
Now, with respect to the owner and applicant, are we there? Okay.
Good.
Okay. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'm going to go ahead and call it to a vote. All those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. Opposed, same sign. I'm abstaining.
May I make a comment?
Yes.
Generally, I'm speaking for myself, obviously, I don't like car lots. And I think this commission, by and large, doesn't care for car lots. I think in this case, this is an applicant who's played by the rules. And I think we ought to respect those who play by the rules. And they are correct. Eventually, that other ground is going to be developed. So I think in this case, I feel good about our decision.
Yeah. And I'm glad you do, because he's already in business on 14th.
Jason, do we
And his
have
business is a good one.
anything on the director's report?
No director's report.
No director's report? Or no? No? Nothing? Haven't met? Anything else for the good of the group?
We have to meet with the city manager.
No, are we meeting with the city manager? We met last week with the city manager, Jason?
I thought that was called.
Did we meet last week with the city manager, or is this week?
Do you know, Kathy? We'll look into it and get an email out.
Email everybody if you would. Okay. Anything else for the good of the group? Seeing none, we're adjourned. See, you didn't have to book out for 7 months.
Here we are again. Haven't seen you around in a while. Where have you been? New look, you found your style.